Jenny, great to see you. We had a plan for a
Good
plan
morning.
on Friday. It still anticipates lockdowns, though, well into next year. What will that do to business?
Well, certainly to have, it anticipates that there'll be a lockdown internationally on the border, very strict border controls. It encourages less lockdowns than at present, so that is a good thing. But certainly we're very much looking forward to what the final targets will be, because that will help to indicate what the timeframes will be. The timeframes indicated on Friday have some concerns, but we hope that more of the pilots coming in, international students, Australian travellers who are vaccinated, being able to return to home isolation, those sorts of pilots hopefully will demonstrate to the community that these things can be done safely and they can feel confident to move to the next stage.
Okay, it sounds like you're still being very realistic when it comes to these targets and what is achievable. So those things that you talk about, by the end of the year, having those pilots, some home quarantine, vaccinated Australians at least getting freedom within their own country.
Yes, I mean, that is very welcome. We've been asking for this for some time. I mean, the critical issues for us is that whether they're vaccinated or not, and also which country they're coming from, obviously also increases the risk. So we're looking for a more nuanced approach to try and get more people being able to come in safely, and for the community, most importantly, to feel safe. As your polling shows, I mean, the community, it's a mixed bag, depending on which state they're in, as to how confident they can be. We need to build that confidence, because it's so important to business to get these things going as soon as possible.
Well, National Cabinet is one thing, but we have seen things in the past agreed to in National Cabinet, but then when there's an outbreak, the premiers do what they think needs to be done anyway. Finally, we're going to see a stop to this, or you're not so confident about it?
I hope so. I really hope so, because certainly we pushed very hard for a national reopening framework last year and finally got a national opening framework released in October and November. And then within a week or two, some states were ignoring the national hotspot definition and closing down in advance of that hotspot definition. And we've seen, again, action that relates to hotspots that aren't really fitting within the national definition. But I think the Delta variant is scaring a lot of the health advisors, that are scaring in turn the state governments. And so we obviously need to be conscious of that. We need to continue to build community confidence, and we need to rely on more than just vaccination, as your previous expert said, and we need to rely on vaccination, contact tracing, use of masks and other restrictions as needed, rather than a single solution here. We need to make sure we can get open and stay open as soon as we can.
Okay, there's no safety net anymore for business and employees. JobKeeper has well and truly ended, but we're still facing this threat of lockdown, more restrictions imposed on business in particular, at least for, it would seem, the next 9 months realistically. Even with the optimistic plan we saw on Friday, business is going to struggle over the next 6 months. I mean, what are you anticipating here?
Definitely continuing to struggle. I mean, those support measures that have been announced post-JobKeeper, including what both state governments are doing as well as the federal government's equivalent of the crisis response package, are critically important to keep those in place and to respond depending on the extent of the impact. So obviously a full lockdown has a completely different impact than introducing some restrictions. We need to be very mindful that businesses can't survive forever, and their jobs, that the people that they employ, can't survive forever, with us continuing to go backwards and forwards between open, lockdown. So let's hope that they all stick to this plan and we get some realistic targets and timeframes that make it so that we can all see the future much closer.
I know there's millions of small businesses nodding along furiously with some of the comments you've made this morning, Jenny Lambert. So we're looking for some certainty for them as well. Thanks so much for your time, as always.
My pleasure. Thanks very much.